Jared Hooper was the only person to answer the ad for the extra room. And since I was desperate to find a roommate, I had him move in that week. We walked into the house together, and he had only a handful of things. A large duffel bag, a messenger carrying case, and an envelope of cash with the first and last month's rent inside of it. Bed? I asked him. Air mattress, he replied, his gaze towards the carpet. It makes you feel like you're sleeping on air. Jared was built like a life-size G.I. Joe with a face that reminded me of a young John Malkovich. His clothes were ratty to the point that might actually fall to threads if you washed them. The oily hair dripping off of his head smelled like rotten butterscotch. Eye contact was not something Jared engaged in often. I could help you set up the air mattress, I offered, trying to make an icebreaker joke like I was advised to do in my freshman undergrad dorm. You know, pump, pump, pump it up. Jared walked into his room without a word, dropped his bags, and shut the door, and I did not see him come out until 3 in the morning to use the bathroom. The routine that Jared and I developed was your typical ships passing in the night relationship. I had to get up and go to work and then to my art history graduate courses at State. I'd be out of the house from 8 in the morning until 9 or 10 at night. Jared, from what I could tell, did not leave the house, let alone his room most days. The only time I ever knew of Jared leaving our living space was one Saturday when he announced that he was driving up to North County to have dinner with his father, and then returning home in the morning. Have fun, I said. He spent some time in prison. Okay. I hope he doesn't try to cook fritters again. He's always trying to cook fritters, but they burn. The fritters always burn. And with that, he exited, and I finished my bowl of Raisin Bran before calling Dee Dee to come over. I told people that Dee Dee was my girlfriend, and she told people that she could do better, but in her words, for now, cock was cock. Dee Dee liked to have sex outside in the small, secluded backyard so that she could get a tan and sweat more, which burned off her ritual breakfast parfait. Though she claimed to be an adventurous girl, Dee Dee developed a routine of making me strip in the living room before chasing me outside with my own belt, whipping my back whenever she got close enough. Then, when I had run out of breath, she would tackle me and wrap her thighs around my face while proceeding to pleasure herself. I was not a full-fledged supporter of all these activities, but hey, she was my girlfriend. On this particular morning, Dee Dee arrived in her pajamas, walked out onto the back porch, pulled her pants down and said, "Make it quick, I'm supposed to be at Planned Parenthood in an hour." When we finished, I sat down next to Dee Dee and talked about the possibilities of us spending 4th of July together in the Bay Area. God, you are impossible! Why don't you just get over yourself? Dee Dee shouted at me before pulling up her pants and going inside the house. I tried to run after her, but she had locked the door behind me. And through the window, I watched the love of my life extend her middle finger in my direction before walking out the door. Naked and confused, it dawned on me that unless I wanted to risk shaming myself in front of my neighbors, I was going to have to find some way back into the house from the backyard. The only thing I could think of was to pull the screen off of Jared's window and apply pressure to the glass so I could slide it open with my palms. To my surprise and relief, this actually worked. I hoisted myself up into Jared's room, rolled over the half-inflated air mattress, and looked over on the wall that was filled with different colors and jagged lines. They were pictures, not ones that Jared had drawn or sketched by hand, but ones that he had created on Microsoft Paint. Printed out and then hung up on his wall. For the 2 months that we had been living together, I had only heard the sounds of an inkjet printer escape from behind his closed door and the infrequent outbursts of laughter that I thought were apropos of nothing. Now it all made sense. Jared was holding himself up day and night in order to create these portraits and landscapes and comical scenarios on his computer. I counted 52 taped to the wall, and when I moved the mouse on his desktop that was sitting on the floor, it awakened to show me a work in progress. I hit the print button and went to go put on some pants. Now, all of us who attend State as graduate students in the art history program really fancy ourselves artists and have all silently agreed that this particular course of study is just a safety net until we can all get our own gallery spaces arranged. I brought one of Jared's pictures to my Greco-Roman study group and passed it around. It was a bold move on my part because I was sure I would be shot down in the holier-than-thou snobbery that our group tagged onto all the art that was not created from our inner circle. On the contrary, everyone laughed and then grew quiet with awe. Dee Dee broke the silence by describing it as New Wave Dadaism meets Shepard Fairey 2.0, and then casually mentioned how she had discovered this type of style last year in Paris. The study group wanted to see more. Trouble was, I was not sure when Jared would leave his room again. So I'd get the opportunity to liberate another one of these amazing MS Paint masterpieces. We decided to get creative and have Dee Dee call Jared from a payphone, posing as a girl who found his credit card. This was the only story that Jared offered up from his North County trip. Dee Dee arranged for them to meet at the Denny's near downtown, giving me an hour to print as many of Jared's MS paintings as I could and scan the others in my room. Jared returned home earlier than I expected, but I had over 100 copies of his work in my possession. I hopped in bed when I heard Jared enter the house and picked up a paperback novel, innocent as could be. I waited for Jared to go in his room, and a minute later I heard a knock on my door. I opened it and was prepared to give Jared the concerned look I had been practicing all afternoon. Hey, buddy, did you get your credit card back? No, I just canceled it. Right, yeah. Hey, Jared finally made eye contact with me. Do you have an color ink cartridge? Mine's all out. We started to frame them. We started to name them. Our gallery was limited to Dee Dee's studio in North Park, but there was enough wall space to hang hair gel. Oh, I was reading the paper, and Mother's Day Part 2. Some of our exhibitions did not even have a visual element, like birthday card, and that made them all the more fascinating to look at for hours on end. The collection even had a series of MS paintings depicting rainbows ejaculating onto young girls' faces. I told Dee Dee that all of these were made during Jared's midnight snack phase. For one whole week, my roommate would get up in the middle of the night and sit in front of our open refrigerator, rearranging the contents until they were just so. I gathered that this was part of the artistic process, so I didn't bother Jared if I stumbled upon him early in the morning, adjusting the French's mustard to complement the carton of eggs. Dee Dee didn't care about his process. She had bigger plans on her mind. Why don't you have a show for Jared's works? She suggested. You could be the curator. And with that, Dee Dee started preparing our exhibition. I created a program for the evening going into the history of the art and the possible inspiration for its creation. I spent 5 nights ignoring my midterm paper and writing endlessly about how there was no method to Jared's madness, though I kept his name out of the entire shindig. The day before the exhibition opened, over 200 people RSVP'd to our event, and by the time the doors opened, I counted at least 300 people in line. Who knows how many circulated through after that? 2 hours later, Dee Dee introduced me to a gaudily dressed woman with bright red hair, who I soon learned was inquiring about the listing price for "This is it, babe. This is love." Looking back now, I don't know why I said what I said, but I eventually said $1,500 and the artist only takes cash. Wow. Jared told me he got a part-time job. Oddly enough, it was at the Denny's that Dee Dee and I had set him up at 4 weeks ago. According to Jared, the manager hired him on the spot to be the late-night maitre d' due to his winning personality and energetic character. Plus, Jared informed me, free grand slam with every shift. That's great, I replied, my own mind preoccupied on the uninterrupted access to his room, to his computer, to his work. I had stopped sleeping after 5 of his pieces sold for $2,000 each to an art dealer in Chicago. I racked up a large phone bill talking to collectors and potential buyers across the country, but by the end of May I quit answering for fear that I would have to part with too many of the paintings. A queasy feeling bubbled in my stomach every time I had to ship off another one of Jared's pieces, and I'd never get the chance to see it again. I didn't touch the money, it just stayed in an account that Dee Dee opened under her name. She would manage it as well as look for potential buyers up north. I had to take an incomplete in Greco-Roman, along with 3 other classes.
Oh no.
I know, right? At the beginning of June, Dee Dee went to the Bay Area, and I begrudgingly went to register for summer classes. The $15,000 we had made off of selling Jared's work was more than enough to pay for the semester, but when I double-checked the account before going to the registrar's office, not 1 penny remained. Dee Dee never came back from the Bay Area, and Dear John me in an email on the 4th of July. It didn't matter. I still had Jared and his paintings, and that was all I needed. The nights Jared had a shift at Denny's, I spent hours in his room soaking in all of his art. From the early works to the yet-to-be-finished ones, nothing was left untouched by my eyes. One sweltering August night, as I was alone in Jared's room, basking in the newest edition of his collection, I removed all of my clothes and curled up on the half-inflated air mattress next to a picture of a woman who frequently appeared in Jared's more graphic pieces. I awoke covered in sweat with my roommate towering over me. Jared, He extended a piece of checkered bread that hung limp in his hands. Want some? I know you're supposed to never eat soggy waffles, but... Look, I am really sorry about coming into your room like this. Really, I am. It's just, it's a lot cooler in your room, and last night was, whew. How do you like them? My pictures. I stopped, stunned to be asked the question by the eccentric master himself. I blushed like the groupie that I was. I love them. They are true works of art. Jared tore off a mouthful of waffle and simultaneously mumbled, "Thanks." Well, I'd better leave you to it, I managed while backing myself out of Jared's room as quickly as I could. Pose for me. What? Pose for me. For a painting. Seriously? I've been wanting to paint you ever since we first met. Jared turned on his computer and opened up a blank canvas in MS Paint. Just sit right there on the air mattress and close your eyes. Imagine you're floating in space and a Care Bear has blown out the candles on your birthday cake. So I sat there, holding still in the moist heat as Jared maneuvered the mouse most precisely, clicking on new colors and brush sizes every so often. I wondered what my portrait would look like. I wondered if I would be as immaculately captured in his work as all of his other subjects. I closed my eyes. In space, the birthday candles on my cake are smoldering. Thank you.
Arky!